I heard the door slowly opening. I thought it was my dad who had got up to go to the bathroom, but I didn't hear him leave, so I thought he had just opened the door a little to let more air in, so I didn't pay so much attention. I didn't open my eyes and kept trying to sleep. But just at that moment, I heard the burly laugh of a little girl. I'm writing to tell you about a terrifying experience I had when I was very young. At that time I was only 11 years old, and it is something that since then has made me believe that alongside what we see, there is a spiritual world. A world that is closer to us than we think, and it is only a very fragile and thin line that separates us from it. I think this barrier is so weak that sometimes things and situations like the one I'm going to tell you about happen. This happened in the already distant year 1990, and I have not experienced anything so macabre since that day. At that time, we lived in a ranch that my parents took care of. They were in charge of working on it, feeding the animals and providing maintenance to everything that was necessary, vehicles, construction and all the existing equipment. The ranch was very far from any town and we didn't have electricity. To illuminate ourselves once the sun was hidden, we used lighters and other artifacts made with glass containers, mesh and diesel. And only to go out to give the roundabouts at dawn to watch the ranch, we used lamps with batteries. At that time my family was made up of my parents, a brother who is a little older, my two little sisters and me. The little house in which we lived only consisted of 2 rooms. One was the bedroom and the other was the kitchen. They were one on each side, separated by a small corridor. The bathroom was outside of these, and we had to go out and walk a few steps to get to it. That night when this terrible experience happened, it was summer. My brother and I were very hot, so we decided to sleep outside the rooms, in the corridor. This was protected only by a cyclonic mesh door, which prevented the dogs from entering the small house. We made a slope with cardboard below. Y encima extendemos varias cabillas para no estar acostados directamente sobre el suelo. It was the first time we slept outside. That night, in particular, the heat was unbearable. But my parents and my little sister stayed inside. Around 3 in the morning, I woke up because I needed to urinate. I opened the mesh door and left the house. I felt very comfortable with the air coming from all sides and the moon illuminated everything clearly. It was the only source of light we had out there. After doing my necessities, I returned to the corridor and lay down again. I was face up with my eyes closed, enjoying the fresh air that entered through the door. Suddenly, I heard the sound of the door of the room opening slowly. I thought it was my dad who had got up to go to the bathroom, but I didn't hear him leave. So I thought I had just opened the door a little to let more air in, so I didn't pay so much attention. I didn't open my eyes and kept trying to sleep, but just at that moment, I heard the burly laugh of a little girl. And although I have younger sisters, that wasn't heard like any of them. Confused, I opened my eyes and turned to the door of the room that only had about 20 centimeters of opening, and in all that darkness I saw a girl who was peeping behind her. I could only see half of her face, which was her left eye, half of a smile that let me see her teeth, and also part of her curly hair. Y cuando se dio cuenta de que la estaba viendo, cerró la puerta y volvió a reírse. I could hear her clearly. That girl was playing with me, while I didn't know what to feel or what to think. I knew well that that girl was not any of my sisters, but I could not get into my head that it could be something else, since we did not have visitors. She was not any other relative or friend of my sister's. I stayed still, lying down, looking at the door and surprised by what was happening. Suddenly, I heard the sound of the door opening again. But this time, he did it completely. And that girl stood right in the frame, letting herself be seen clearly. And that's when I felt the most intense fear I've ever experienced in my life, because at that moment I proved that I was right. That girl wasn't any of my sisters, but the worst and most scaring of all is that she was floating several centimeters from the ground. Just as I entered, Mi corazón latio con fuerza al verla. I tried to find an explanation to what was happening. I clearly remember that she was a little girl, maybe about 4 or 6 years old, with short hair. She was wearing a white dress. She knew very well that I was staring at her, and that she had me very scared. I know because she gave another disturbing smile and went into the room, closing the door again. Then I heard that doorbell again when I opened it. And there she was again, standing on the threshold. And then she repeated the same action, as if she were playing with me. Her laugh was disturbing. It was strange. Seriously, it makes me cold to remember her. I tried to pull her from her blanket to cover me completely from head to toe. But my brother had her wrapped around her body and I couldn't cover myself completely. So all I could do was lie down face down so I wouldn't see her again, wishing and hoping that she would disappear and I could feel safe again, but it was the other way around. I heard her laughter approaching, and I felt that she was right next to me. I was terrified. I had never felt so vulnerable. And she did what I never thought would happen. She crouched down. And the same time she laughed, she began to prick my ribs with her fingers. I kept my face down with my arms and yelled at her to leave and leave me alone. But she didn't. She kept laughing and having fun with me. Lo extraño es que parecía que nadie podía escuchar mis gritos, ni siquiera mi hermano, que estaba dormido exactamente al lado mío. Finally, después de no sé cuántos segundos o minutos, desde el interior del cuarto mi padre preguntó qué me pasaba. Y después se levantó y salió del cuarto con una lámpara en la mano. En ese mismo instante dejé de escuchar las risas de la niña y me dejó en paz. I think it was at that moment that she disappeared, since I did not see her again after that. Mi padre salió y me preguntó si estaba bien. Yo me levanté y entré corriendo al cuarto. Estaba muy aterrado y casi al borde del llanto. Le conté todo lo que había pasado, y creo que si me creo desde el primer instante, ya que me dijo que mejor me metiera a dormir con ellos de nuevo. Esa fue la primera y última noche que dormí afuera. Ya estando más tranquilo, no me explicaba cómo es que la niña pudo abrir la puerta, siendo que siempre la dejábamos asegurada con un alambre para que mis hermanas no se fueran a salir en la noche al campo. Y es que ella la abrió como si nada. Y cuando mi padre se levantó a ver que estaba pasando, él tuvo que quitar el alambre primero para abrir la puerta. It's one of the many things that I can't explain how it happened. Besides, my brother woke up the next morning and didn't realize anything. Until today, 33 years later, I don't know who could have been that girl. Because, luckily, it was the only time I saw her. Every time I remember this experience, I can't help feeling chills. However, thinking about it, I think that little one wasn't bad. She was more of a wandering and playful soul, who decided to have fun with me that night. However, while she laughed, I was dying of fear. As I mentioned, that was the only time she introduced herself to me. But from that night on, we were not going to sleep without lighting a candle and praying for her soul. I think that helped us not to see her again. I hope you liked my story. Thank you for listening.